think it might have been that tie game. I know that was in the 60s. Can you guys hear me? Because I don't do this.
Some people in the back, so you can really speak into the mic.
Got it. We don't want them to miss any jokes, right? So I am not a historian. I am not a professional presenter, but hopefully I look the part tonight. That's for me. That's what it's all about. So yeah, the book was a great experience. I have to say thanks to John and Slim and Cindy for their help. It was fun to go over there and do some research. And one thing, when I took the book back, John made that invitation to come present, and I'm like, ooh, okay. And I said, well, that would be fun to do it at the Manchester, Historical Museum and at the Trask House. He said, well, we don't do that anymore, actually. We do it over at the Sacred Heart Parish, or the Sacred Hall. Thank you. Sacred Heart Parish Hall. And I said, oh, quite interesting. I said, hold on a sec. And I picked up the phone, and do we have any other Roman Catholics in the house tonight? I picked up the phone and made a call to Rome. Spoke to a gentleman, friend of mine called Frank. Well, I know him as Frank. Most people know him as Francis. And I said, here's the thing. I'm going to be doing this thing on Tuesday night. It's right next to a church. It's called the Sacred Heart Parish Hall. Is that going to cover me for my obligation coming up this Sunday? He said, no problem. Even the previous Sunday it'll work. So 2 for 1, David. Thank you, Jesus. We're covered. And anybody else in there is a Roman Catholic, you're covered for the coming Sunday. What else did I want to mention? Yes, it is great to see a lot of people there tonight, particularly friends and family and B&T members. For all of you, the members that are here, your $15 Dunkin' Donuts gift card is in the mail. So thanks so much for coming. I know we have a lot of members. Do we have any past members here tonight?
Yes.
Ah, yes. What's your name, ma'am?
Me?
Yes.
Janet.
Janet, what's your last name?
Marco.
Ooh, hold on a second.
Marco.
Aha, we have an outstanding balance for you here. If you could see me after the program. All right, let's. And I do have to make one special thanks. Putting this book together was several years, and I do have to say a special thanks to my book widow wife, who for about 3 years put up with everything I was doing and the mess that I made. So I have to say a special thanks to my beautiful wife, Nancy. All right, let's move along. So tonight we're going to talk a lot about Magnolia. And obviously we're going to talk about the B&T, but for me, I've always been, fascinated by history on the North Shore, and particularly what I think it was Joe Garland's books that kind of turned me on. And you take a ride down to, Beverly Farms, and you see those amazing iron fences, and just wonder what is this all about. And so from there, I kind of got hooked on things. And I'm sure you folks know a lot about Magnolia, but hopefully what I'm going to present tonight is a little more. Tonight is a lot about visuals. I'm going to try not to speak too much, but I am going to read a lot of quotes that I think are appropriate. I think you'd all agree that we have to pinch each other now and again or ourselves now and again, because we live in such a special place and a beautiful place, and I think we all take it for granted. And 100 or 125 years, when people slowly came, up from Boston, and they went to Nahant for their summer spot, they went to Swampscott, then Beverly, and they came to Manchester and Magnolia. For us today, it's like if we go to a Caribbean island, if we go to a Greek island, if we go to the Amalfi Coast and say, man, this is amazing. That's what those people were saying about the North Shore, and very much so about Magnolia, as you'll see about some of these quotes that I'm going to read, that I found in the research that I did with newspapers, books, magazines, and those summer residents love to extol about the virtues of all that we have to offer here. So without further ado, let us move on. All right, so there's Kettle Cove. It wasn't until after the Civil War began that the North Shore only truly became known as a place to come for the summer. And obviously it was the Industrial Revolution that spawned the riches of the Gilded Age. And summer members, moved from Boston and, as I say, up the coast, and eventually to Magnolia. Here's one of those quotes that I had mentioned. The environs of the beach still possess the same untrained, uncultivated, eminently natural beauty that first charmed the artistic visitors to Magnolia. There is a tradition that this area of land, which now blossoms with kind of, I know, I practice it at home like that. Whatever. Caravanseries was sold and purchased for less than $10,000. Whatever the sordid details of this good bargain, the modern Magnolia is one of the prettiest places in the world. And that goes back, as you see there, from 1894. Here's another shot of Kettle Cove. That would be the beach club right about there. But in 1893, the New York Times said Magnolia was one of the prettiest places conceivable. So they started liking it. Another good quote, "Those who have summered along the North Shore never fail to spread its glories. It is in reality one of nature's grandest gifts, a vacation land beyond compare. Its past is secure, its present splendid, and its future wonderful in its possibilities." It sums us up pretty good. We live in a great spot. Let's take a quick look back. Back in the 1600s, a gentleman by the name of John Kettle came along and he grabbed a patch of land, and that's where the name Kettle Cove came from. Not a very good map. That appears to be Magnolia right there. It's hard to say. That might be Crow Island. Let's move on to 1872. And you can see, this is what is now Coolidge Point. You can see Ocean Street up here coming down. They didn't finish it off. Crow Island right there. So Kettle Cove, as you can see here, it's been very confusing to a lot of people and to the map makers over here at the same time. And if you look even closer, you see what we know as Magnolia Beach. Right here, it's Gray's Beach with an E. It's also been Gray Beach with an A, and it's and very much known as Crescent Beach over the years. By the way, folks, if I ever move on and you want me to go back, just yell out, "Hey, go back for a second." So I'm happy to do so. Yet another map, this one from 1884. As you can see here, there's Crescent Beach. And if I'm not speaking loud enough, tell me that as well. Just put your hand up if I can. Once again, Coolidge Point, Kettle Cove over here. They're not naming a Kettle Cove right here. What we're going to move on to is up here you're going to see something called the Crescent Beach House, which is the first hotel in Magnolia. So, Magnolia became known as Magnolia around 1876, and it was based upon a discovery in Ravenswood Park, kind of a swampy area, where they found this tree in 1809 called the Magnolia, one form of Magnolia. And it was so unique because this was the northernmost point that this particular species of the Magnolia tree had ever had been found. So as things started to turn and the summer visitors were coming, they said, we like Magnolia, that's a nice name, let's go with that. So it was a gentleman by the name of Daniel Fuller from Squamscott that bought all of the land on Magnolia Point, which at the time was known as Knowlton Farm. And he bought them from the family, and he's the guy that, apparently paid $10,000 and got it all. So he started selling lots, he started building some houses, and eventually he started the Hesper's Hotel in 1877. But prior to him, so Knowlton went off and built this hotel. This is where Summerwind is presently. That's called the Crescent Beach House. And it was considered the first summer hotel in 1873. It later became the Blenheim Hotel in the late 1880s and continued and grew in size, and eventually it burnt down in 1909. A few years later, a gentleman by the name of William Coolidge one of the club founders, bought this property and named it Blimden Farm. I'll touch on a little bit about him later. And this is the spot, as I say, where Summer Hill is being built. So if you look here, you can see the bathhouses, because anybody that was a guest at the hotel could come and they would have these bathhouses at no cost. So the interesting thing about this is that right about here is where the club was going to be built. All right, I'm talking too much. So here's the Crescent Beach House. This is their first ad. You can see Alan Knowlton. Beautiful Crescent Beach is just back of the house. Affords superior facilities for bathing, connected to the trains. And a couple of years later, it was now the new and beautiful. As you can see, if I go back a second, they were kind of confused themselves, like Kettle Cove, Manchester by the Sea, Crescent Beach. Then, I don't know, 5 years later, all of a sudden it was Magnolia, and it was the beautiful new resort Magnolia. So they kind of got their act together. What you're looking at here is from 1882. If you were standing or one of those upper floors of the Crescent Beach House that I just showed you, this was the view of Magnolia back in 1882. So as you can see, you can start seeing some of those cottages that were being built. Not a lot happening on the beach. The club eventually will be right there. You can almost see that might be the Hesper's house up there, and here's Raymond Street right there on the bottom. So not a bad view if you're a visitor and stayed at the Crescent Beach House back then. Pardon me, let's see. Another shot from Shore Road looking across. Magnolia originally was, your quiet hamlet of fishing and farming, and then all of a sudden people are like, wow, that's pretty good. So here's another shot of the beach. 1889, they were still, things were in full swing in 1889 as far as the summer residents and the cottagers and the people coming to the hotels, but obviously they had to eat. So these guys were some of the best dressed, fishermen that I've ever seen. I'm looking at this and I'm wondering if they had leather shoes on along with the ties. But anyway. So here's another shot. In the background you can see the first house that was built on Coolidge, on the land that T.J. Coolidge owned. And the house was built in 1879 by a man by the name of James Freeman Clark. He was a Unitarian minister, an author, and a social reformer. And as I say, he was the first resident there on Coolidge Point. I guess you could say he was the first, resident on the beach, because there was nothing else going on, so he had the view. It's funny, during his first summer, he wrote to a friend saying, quote, "Here one can take his rest aloof from care, as I sit on the piazza facing the blue ocean, see the white surf on Kettle Island, hear the long roll of the beach close by. I feel as if all the anxiety and worry of life were far away." Well said. I wish I could say that presently. Even though we live here, I don't have that location though. So here's Shore Road looking north, back up to the square, which would be up here. The beach is over there. So obviously there was a lot of fishing going on there, and as I say, it's that's the way it was. And this road, as we know it, is Shore Road. Originally it was Willow Road, and it was also Lobster Lane. Here's a shot known as Willow Road. You can see the island out there. Not too sure what happened to the pier at that point in time. All right, here's another shot. You're looking out on Coolidge Point right there. And by 1905. Let's see. 1905, and that's obviously Coolidge Point, and a little something on that house. That house was on the point, at the end of the point, was built in 1896. By the way, if you don't know it at this time, that house is for sale. At $9.8 million, I can attest that it is worth every cent because I have been in that house. So, and the owner of the house happens to be here tonight, so if you'd like me to hook you up, if you have your checkbook with you, I'm more than happy to introduce you to the current owner of the house. Who knows? Maybe he'll give you a break. Here's another quick quote extolling the virtues of Magnolia, and this one was in the Boston Globe in July 1st of 1900. And it says, "Magnolia, as usual, with its wealth of attractions, its colony of cottagers, and its big hotels, places the summer of 1900 with all assurance that the present will be its banner year. For the popularity of the place grows more and more pronounced every year. The state highway, Summer Street, the state highway is in good condition, and a ride by carriage or wheel along its shady precincts is a delight indeed. The road is gradually becoming a favorite place for summer residents, as the number of new cottages that have been built along its precincts attest. In the course of time, it promises to be quite thickly populated and will surely furnish an elegant residential section." You betcha. Can you say Hickory Hill? No, I don't think that's what they quite had in mind when they mentioned that. So a big thing for Magnolia in its growth was when they put in Magnolia Station. Does you folks know where the Magnolia Station is? Well, it only makes one stop. No, it doesn't. It's long gone. It's at the end of Magnolia Ave in Manchester. But that was key because so here's the station. It was built in 1879, as they say, at the end of Magnolia Ave in Manchester, and it helped very much so with the rise in popularity. It was a stop that was added onto the Eastern Railroad that would eventually become part of the Boston and Maine. So this picture was taken around 1905, and it's interesting that you can see both the horse coach and the auto lined up there. I believe that's a Packard Model N. Is there anyone in the room that owned one of those, or drove one of those at one time? No, I don't think so. All right, but so anyway, yeah, this is, if you were to take a ride to the end of Magnolia Ave today, there's nothing but dirt. So it's kind of amazing how things have changed. And you take a look over here, and there's a train coming south from Rockport. So that's what was going on. So
where was that?
off of Summer Street, there's Magnolia Ave. It's kind of a fork as you head towards Magnolia, and it's a road that you would have no reason to go down unless you lived there. But take a ride sometime, and that's where they would come, and that would be their short ride to Magnolia Point. So this is the Perkin House. It was originally built by James Perkins in 1875, and it would eventually become the Oceanside under George Upton, who bought it and changed the name in 1880. It's located on the corner of Hesperus and Lexington Ave, where today you'll see a tall brick, ugly building. But this property, it just exploded with the, this is in 4 years, and as you can see, it went from that to that, and eventually we'll eventually see how it really got large. So what we have here is once again one of the first houses. This is the house. This is the hotel that Daniel Fuller built, and obviously there's a Fuller Street, in Magnolia. So now we know where that's Daniel Fuller. The original property was that right there, and it grew quite quickly, and eventually in 1912, the Oceanside actually bought it out, as we will see. Let's move on. Here's they used to do these wonderful ads. Here's one in Harper's Magazine in 1908. They sold it quite well. Social life of Magnolia is far famed, and the diversity of its entertainment noted. Beautiful scenery along the perfect roads, as there are in America. So in one of Joe Garland's books, yes?
Where's the Kettle Cove Golf Club?
Ooh. tricky question. Actually, the Kettle Cove Golf Links, as it was known, was also on Magnolia Ave, kind of right where Manchester and Gloucester cross.
The Magnolia Ave in Magnolia or Manchester?
No, this is Summer Street. As you take that towards Gloucester, you would take a right to Raymond, but you're going to go straight, and you're going to hit the line of Gloucester and Manchester. It's right there in that neck of the woods. I'm sure there are others out there that know a little bit more, but that's what I know. So with things taking off and ads being in Harper's Magazine, Joe Garland wrote a great mention in one of his books. He says, quote, "All in a rush, Magnolia became the place to go on the North Shore in that Gilded Age when the wealthy packed the whole family along with 43 trunks, maids, pets, carriage, or auto and coachman or chauffeur off to a very proper resort for the summer in a Victorian railroad station of a hotel surrounded by miles of piazzas, acres of lawns, tennis courts, croquet fields, and green and putting greens. The momentum of fashion surged on the rocketing popularity of Magnolia. Only Joe could extol it that way. So back in 1888, another interesting quote. So if 15 or 20 years ago a prophet had said that Kettle Cove was destined to become a fashionable waterhole, no sensible man would have believed him. In those days, society really wandered beyond Beverly, and even the beauties of Manchester were unknown. Had any far-seeing and shrewd speculator foreseen the future of Magnolia and Kettle Cove, he might now be considered almost as clever as Boston's celebrated divine, and have been able to lay up for himself greater treasures upon earth, if not heaven. Well, we know who that was. Actually, that was Daniel Fuller, who paid 10 grand for Magnolia Point. So he's, and a side note about Daniel Fuller, he went out mining, and he died not too long after he started all this business in Magnolia. He fell down a shaft and did not come home. Sorry to say. Sorry to dampen the mood. So yeah, the book started going. The books like Who's Who on the North Shore and the Blue Books started to become an annual staple for all the summer residences. So this is a shot from Crescent Beach, looking towards Magnolia Point. I wish I could get a little closer and do this. So as you can see, what you're seeing there is that's the new Magnolia Hotel. We haven't quite covered that one yet. But right here is where the Hesperus and the Oceanside is. But it's great to. I've got some great shots of how people went to the beach back in over 100 years ago. So here's a shot of if you were to look the other way, looking from the top of the new Magnolia Hotel. On the right you can see the beach, and this is what was the beach pavilion, and eventually would become the location of the club. And the beach pavilion was built in 1902, and we're going to see a little bit. Once again, there's another shot of Coolidge Point. Here's a close-up, what I just showed you, looking down at the pavilion. The pavilion was put together by the big three hotels, Hesperus, the New Magnolia, and the Oceanside. Because, the beach was, these people were glaring at this beautiful beach, but they really didn't have, a way to enjoy it. So let's take a look at a day at the beach from about 110 or so years ago. So as I said, the three big put it together. The Herald ran a story on its opening that stated that it improved things greatly. Quote, "The morning bath hour will be a source of much entertainment, both to the bather and the lover of music, outdoor music." There were daily concerts that were there from 12 to noon, which was also considered something that they called the bathing hour. The article also mentioned that, quote, "The bathhouses are up to date in all their appointments, among which are a subway leading from the water to the dressing room so that the sensitive bather is not exposed to the gaze of the public." If we do a little zoom in there, that's what they're talking about, the subway. Damn, I wish they had one of those at the B&T. Anyway, let's take a closer look at the day at the beach in 1905. Dressed up to the nines. I'm not too sure what's up with this woman right here. I don't know. Let's take another look. So here's, in the same pavilion, the orchestra is up and running. You know, so it's fascinating what they did back then. They didn't. Excuse me. That same day, this is the shot, you know, if you went down to the water, this is what you would see. Sorry for the in and out, but hopefully that helps. This young lady is quite fashionable. Here's another quick, there's our subway right there, so out of the gaze of the public, I don't know, it seems like everybody looking could see them walking into the subway, but I don't know. But, you know, full dressed at the beach, you know, I'm just hoping that, I don't know if it got hot back then, maybe global warming didn't kick in 1905, but, you know, it's, so this gentleman is attired quite well, and fascinating on the left, one thing that surprised me in this photograph is the fact that I didn't realize that they had mobile devices back in 1905. If you look at the woman on the left, I swear that she's looking at her iPhone. I don't know. I don't know what generation iPhone that was. Another good shot. Not too sure who these folks are, obviously, but there's the new Magnolia. Let's see, another shot from the pavilion. So here, what we have is the new Magnolia Hotel that a lot of people don't know because everybody thinks it's the Oceanside because it lasted a lot longer. It was built in 1891. It's basically where you know, J.D. Myers is on Lexington Ave. You know, the patio was there, but it was down closer towards Flume Street. So Flume would have been here. This is Lexington Ave. Let's see. So this was sitting next to the other side of the ocean side, and together they were considered, you know, two of the finest, you know, Victorian age hotels in the East Coast. It was known for the finest appointments and having lavish balls with over 1,000 guests. In 1895, the room rates were from $3.50 to $6. I would imagine the sixth floor, you know, you know those views that they have from the top floor are just spectacular. And you know, unfortunately, it died. So it died. It burned down in 1907. So it was 1891 to 1907, and you know, as we know, the Oceanside lasted until 1958. So you know, a great place. People would come and I'm not going to read that. I'm going a little slow here. So what you see here is this was the menu that was put together for the new Magnolia. I don't have the interior of it, but that shows you, you know, the 4th of July in 1990. This is the way they treated their guests, and pretty special. So here's another shot of the new Magnolia. Something's going on. Not too sure what. Yeah. These young little tykes here looking on. So something was happening, but I thought that was an interesting shot. So then we move into the age of horse shows on Magnolia Beach, which were amazing. You know, the Boston Globe, and I think they started around 1902. And now, because they had that pavilion, people could come and they could watch. I mean, if you know the beach at all, it's very special because it slopes very slowly. It's extremely hard sand. You know, it's perfect for a horse. We like it too. But the Boston Globe said this in 1905, 5,000 people witnessed the mounted sports, among them the attaches of Russia, Brazil, the Argentine Republic legations, besides the wealth and fashion of the shore, who came in coaching, driving, and auto parties and filled the beach and its pavilions to overflowing. So among those onlookers was Harold Vanderbilt. And you know, if you know anything about Eleanor Sears, everybody know about Elio? Yeah, she was quite a character. So she was the granddaughter of T.J. Coolidge, and she and Harold used to hobnob around together. They shared many of the same interests. Elio is what I read. There's a book called Pride's Crossing that you really ought to read. If you like North Shore history and you like interesting people, you will most likely love this book. This woman was the first true Renaissance woman, and at one time she was called the best multi-sport athlete in the country, male or female. So just some notes about Elio. She won the national singles. She was a runner-up national singles tennis in 1912. She won the doubles championship 5 times, the mixed doubles once. She was a golfer, a polo player, a long-distance swimmer, a walker. She loved yachting. She used to walk from Providence to Boston. She swam around Newport like a 4-mile. She just loved these sort of outrageous things. She loved fast cars. And let's see. So that's what lively beach sports of Magnolia. That's what you'd see in the papers. Oops, hold on. Yeah. So anyway, you know, there was this rumor going around in 1906, and it said that, you know, they have been frequently seen driving and walking together, and soon the rumor started. From where it came, there is no telling. Undoubtedly, the two most concerned heard it, but did not cause them to relinquish any of their attention to each other. There's a fascinating end to that, but I'm not gonna tell you. You got to read the book to learn about that. So Elio, as I say, here's a story from a California newspaper that covers Massachusetts about being hunted by the police for failing to appear at a court speeding charge. And you know, if you zoom in here, you know, noted society girl who was hunted by Massachusetts police. The reason why she was known out in California is that she played a lot of polo out there in Burlingame. I mean, this woman, she had the means, but she had the spunk. She was just she was tough to keep up with. So that's a little side note on Elio Sears. Quote, the treatment of mounted sports this afternoon on Crescent Beach was the most splendid success of any entertainment of the sort Magnolia had ever seen. There were 5,000 of the North Shore's best people out for the afternoon. The beach pavilions were packed and hundreds of coaches, automobiles filled the parking spaces. It was a brilliant assembly. The women were in stunning gowns and everything. The day, the cool air, the interest in the affair, and the enthusiasm gave a go for the affair. It's hard to imagine 5,000 people on Crescent Beach. It really is. But the Gymkhana was something that they spoke about, which was all these sort of contests and potato races and all sorts of crazy stuff. You know, the papers that covered some of this were, you know, the Pittsburgh Press, the Detroit Free Press, the Kansas City Star, and the Washington Evening Star. And Magnolia in some of these places was considered, you know, the little Newport. That's kind of the name it got. And here's a quick look. I mean, this is what was out to be seen for these horse events. And they went on, oddly enough, the horse events stopped because of a place called the North Shore Swimming Pool, which was to become the Manchester Baptist Tennis Club. So we bought the land and took down the pavilion. But you know, here's a quick extent of just how you know, inclusive this was with all sorts of events. You name it, they had it. And polo hacks and Galloways, beats me. Novelty race for horses, any height. Hunters and jumpers. There's a quick, some of the things you see in the papers.
Go to the mic, please.
Cheers. The bar's still open, folks. All right, I digress. All right, let's move this along. The ocean side. This is Hesperus Ave right here. The beach would be way over there. So this is kind of giving you a perspective. It can continue to grow after it was bought in 1912. It bought the Hesperus in 1912. And at its height, it was stated to have over 750 rooms, 880 feet of piazzas, as well as 22 cottages, and considered one of the largest hotels on the entire East Coast. So, it was, I don't know why that's blurry like that. It's not supposed to be. Here's the Port Cashore, I believe, is the Cashare. Thank you. Shouldn't try these things. But that's a nice entrance, otherwise known as entrance. A few of the noted guests over the years included John Philip Sousa, who would occasionally take the baton for the Sunday afternoon orchestra concert. The Hines family of ketchup fame, they would come from the entire season and stay at the Oceanside, and eventually they ended up building a house. Mrs. J.P. Morgan showed up, Ulysses S. Grant, Henry Ford, Douglas MacArthur, the Marshall Fields family, Lucille Ball, and there's a famous account from 1903 of a Chinese princess dressed in all silks that showed up with her feet bound. It wasn't me. But, so yeah, where the money went, the bankers. Here's an ad from one of the blue books. And the bankers followed the guys and gals with the money. So they set up their summer branch right there at the Oceanside Hotel. So in addition to the horse shows in Magnolia, there was some really good tennis being played in Magnolia. A guy by the name of Dwight F. Davis, whom we all know today as the owner or the originator of the Davis Cup. He got his start in tennis, believe it or not, in Magnolia. The family was coming here from St. Louis in the early 1890s, and while he was a student at Harvard, he was one of the initiators of something called the Magnolia Challenge Cup, and that was in 1898. And that first season, it included, quote, a large number of crack players from all over the country. So that's something else to keep the crowds interested. Something quickly quick story that ran about the first term, one of the terms, 1900. So here's a view of what you see, the footprint of the Oceanside. We just took a look from right around here. Oops. We were looking from there, looking across the courts. Here's what was the Hesperus Hotel. Here's something, one of the cottages that they always talk about. So it, needless to say, in 1958, it was quite a blaze. So to help give you somewhat of a point of reference on where all these things are, here's a map of Magnolia 1919. So the beach would be over here. Gloucester is, over this side. So what you're seeing here, here's Norman Ave, here's Lexington Ave, here's the ocean side that we were just looking at. And, you can see the what's known as the Colonial and the Colonnade. And so the new Magnolia that we talked about was right there. And when that burnt down, you had something put in there called the Colonnade. So I get, the register of the noteworthy, fashionable, and wealthy. Once again, I think Joe Garland said, On the sturdy rock-bound coast, Magnolia has proved a spot which has attracted the wealthy class who have erected fine mansions and enjoyed numerous advantages which nature has so lavishly bestowed. The hotels have been liberally patronized, and season after season, the place is filled with the most desirable class of people where rest and pleasure fill the hours. You said it. I think we already saw that. I'm going to do a little bit of an after and a before shot. So this is at the corner of Fuller Street and Hesperus. And that's what you see presently. The beach is down here, and Shore Road is down there. So if we turn the clock back, I don't know, 100-something years ago, you see the Green Gables Club. An interesting story that connected the Green Gables Club to the club, the B&T, was a woman by the name in 1926 called Sadie Kelly. She was the owner of this Green Gables Club, and she was applying for renewal for her permit to conduct the cottage for dancing parties. The next day, an article in the Boston Globe ran, reporting an opposition by the Magnolia Improvement Society. And one of those gentlemen was Charles Willis Jones, who was one of our founders, who happened to live next door, right over here to the left. So he got up and spoke, and he said, you know what, and he complained of the, quote, continued pounding of the drum, and the, quote, zoom, zoom, zoom of the bass, as well as noise from the dishwashing. Quote, if the thing kept on, property here was bound to deteriorate in value. So when this debate continued on, and Miss Kelly's attorney came back and said, quote, the article says, asked him if he were not one of the principal officials of the North Shore Swimming Pool, an organization which he said was designed to keep Magnolia exclusive. The applicants for membership being registered 3 years before they were born, limited to the Brahmin caste, and then subjected to a blood test before their application was considered, unquote. What? I never had a blood test for my kids. But, so that was this woman's attorney, and the club's attorney or a gentleman that was a member. He said, actually a member. He said, quote, I found no difficulty in getting into the swimming pool club and didn't have to pass a blood test. So I don't know what transpired there with Green Gables, but here's a colored version of what you just saw. And a look inside shows you their dining room. If you were to look out this window right here, you would see, Magnolia Harbor. Such an awesome view. And unfortunately, that's what you see, that undescript. So another after and before here. Here's Lexington Ave looking down towards, the White House is down there, the Dunkin' Donuts is down there. And if you turn the clock back, here's the arcade on Lexington Ave. Quite a place. And here's looking from the other end. Right here, presently, is none other than Dunkin' Donuts, the new one. The Magnolia Library would be right over here. The shops came and they filled it up. You can see there, Paris, New York, Philadelphia. This is considered the colonnade. That is still I believe that's the Oceanside. Another ad that's out there. Trousseau House of America. Did I pronounce that correctly, Trousseau? Of course I did. Another shot. They had a full-page ad in the Ladies' Home Journal. It was a tabloid. So this is just one of the photographs. They had about 6 or 7 photographs, and this is what it was all about. And as many of you know, it became known as Robbers Row because you had stores like this for those discriminating little visitors who have quite correctly chosen to spend their first summer at Magnolia. The linen store is prepared. The daintiest layouts? Whatever. But anyway, so yeah, they came up from New York and they loved all these companies. They loved. Where am I going? Was it doubles actually? Yeah, there's There's the colonnade right there. Once again, you know, the White House at the end of Lexington would be down here, so you're looking kind of north. Here's another after and before. So this is the top of Lexington Ave. You know, Dunkin' Donuts up until recently was right here. The patio, as we all know, was right there. Anybody go to the patio? Everybody went to the patio. One point or another. So this is what it looked like presently. Turn the clock back, and that's what you saw. It was originally known as a tea house, but in this picture it's the North Shore Grill, which was opened in 1906. The Boston Herald described it as one of the most fashionable spots of society along the North Shore. In the early 20s, it became Del Monte's, a popular spot known for its fine cuisine and dancing. A gentleman by the name of Ruby Newman would come up from the Hotel Buckminster in New York, and you know, he provided the entertainment, you know, through the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, and Ruby even showed up for some occasions at the Beach Club. Here's another shot of that same. Many times what they like to do is they like to colorize actual photographs. Let's do a little zoom in, see what's up with this gentleman. May I take your coat, sir? So, okay, let's move on. We're getting close to the B&T opening up here. So what was happening in 1913? The Titanic had recently sunk. A lot of people thought that that was the end of the Gilded Age. You know, this thing can't be sunk. Well, yes, it can be sunk. So people, you know, and then all of a sudden the tax started. So Woodrow Wilson was the president. That same year, the Japanese gifted 3,000 cherry trees to the U.S. Makes up the National Cherry Blossom each spring festival. So income tax was started. And the tax code back then was one paid, baby. And only 3% of the population was paying taxes. And now 73,000 pages, and I believe 110% of the population is paying taxes, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Cracker Jacks was started, the first crossword puzzle. What was $1 in 1913 now is $23, or cost $23. And as we all know, the greatest game ever played in 1913, in that same summer that the club started, Francis Ouimet won the U.S. Golf Championship as an amateur. And also, should have been a bullet point, Ford also started the first moving assembly line in gas, just 18 cents a gallon. So a bunch of gentlemen got together and they said, hey, you know what, let's put something together here. Let's I think, you know, we're as they said, it took too much time to get to Essex County Club, and literally, and so they wanted to set up their own beach club. They got together, they had meetings at the Magnolia Library, and you know, after some initial visits, the plans to build a casino and a swimming pool on the beach were accepted. So they purchased the land that pavilion was on, and it mentions that they would have 175 dressing rooms, lounging room, showers, baths. So this was in October of 1912. This made the news, you know, all the way to the Pittsburgh Press. There's a couple of steel magnates that were already coming to Magnolia, and they jumped on board as some of the first subscribers. Pittsburgh was hot here on the North Shore, as we know. Henry Clay Frick, who owns, you know, Eagle Rock, that over-the-top palatial estate. He was Carnegie's #2 man. So these gentlemen put together a kind of a that's interesting, a promotional piece to sell the subscriptions and the shares, and it was a small 6-page brochure. And in November, they formed a trust under the name of the Magnolia Beach Associates, and it was 4 gentlemen by the name of Charles W. Jones, Costello Coolidge Converse, Lucius Tuttle, and Horace H. Stevens, and they would head the task and lead the way of bringing this club to being. What you're seeing here is within this brochure, prior to the club opening, you see the annual dues are $15. You can join the club for the whole season, a month, or just 2 weeks. As you see, you know, 2 weeks was just a total of $3. You got your family membership there. The difference between members and subscribers is that subscribers were would not have the right to vote, and that is still the case today, 103 years later. Interesting, it states that persons of either sex over 15 years of age are eligible to membership upon nomination by 2 members. I guess I'll send an email to my son about that, about joining the club on its own. Just a thought. It also mentioned that there were bathhouses available for the cost of $15 for the season, and that the bathhouses services such as towels and, quote, care of a bathing suit for 1 person. So they had a laundry there and they took care of that. Here's the original rendering by Andrew Jakes and Rantoul, the architects. They were also the architects of the original Essex County clubhouse and also the Bar Harbor Swimming Club that they put together. I don't expect you to see that, but there's another indication of how they did not know what this beach was. Great beach. You can see the, this cast iron pipe right there, which was what it was all about. And it was going to feed the club its salt water. So an article in the Boston Evening Transcript in April of 1913, before the club opened, said that the club would feature a lounge room, tea rooms, card rooms, and, quote, every provision for the comfort of the members. It also stated that the pool would be emptied and filled daily with salt water to, quote, ensure its cleanliness and for temperature of the pool to be raised 3 to 4 degrees above that of the ocean. So as we got closer to the opening date of June 20th, 1913, it was really hitting the papers out there. The North Shore Breeze said that, quote, the casino will go forward, making Magnolia one of the most popular spots in the North Shore, unquote. As we got even closer, the Breeze said, quote, the club will be one of the show places of the North Shore this season, unquote. And on June 15th, the Boston Globe stated, the project will be much from Magnolia. There's been no place for rendezvous or social gatherings, afternoon teas, and the like nearer than the Essex County Club. So apparently somebody didn't like taking that little ride. So in June 1st of that year, it was legally incorporated as the North Shore Swimming Pool, and the corporation would lease the property that was owned and held by the Magnolia Beach Associates Trust, who were those gentlemen that I mentioned that were part of the board of directors. So there's a look at one of the first. This is probably the first photograph that we have available to us. Gonna love those balusters works. So the charter, the bylaws stated, quote, it was established for maintenance of a place for social gatherings and meetings of the club and reading room, and the encouragement of bathing, tennis, and other athletic exercises and sports. And the seal shall bear the inscription, North Shore Swimming Pool, Magnolia, 1913, unquote. And as you can see, the club has changed very little over the years. Those balusters are no longer there. We've got canvas. So needless to say, when it hit the papers when it opened up, it had a public open house back in July 4th of 1913. And the place was thronged, as it says there, by more than 1,000 residents of the North Shore. The article on the right reads, the open house at the North Shore Swimming Pool of Magnolia during the entire day of the 4th gave hundreds of North Shore residents opportunity to inspect the pool and the club rooms, which joined it. The popularity of Magnolia as a summer resort was increased manyfold among those who accepted the invitations of the recently formed Magnolia organization. Here's a quick list of the board of directors. You'll see, we'll talk about a couple of these men later on, but you might see some names that look familiar. I know Dr. Lancashire was was a fairly well-known Manchester guy. So here's the opening season, folks. In a write-up, the Herald mentioned that the pool was, quote, one of the most complete swimming pools in the country. It is of cement and is 70 feet long and 30 feet wide with a maximum depth of 9 feet. The water is changed twice daily and pumped direct from the ocean. In passing from the ocean to the pool, the temperature of the water is raised several degrees, making it possible for those whom the ocean is too cold to enjoy consistently the advantages of saltwater bathing. All right. So what you see here is, they used to love having diving competitions, and that's what you're seeing here. Here's another great shot. Everybody's out in their full regalia, and young little diver here. Kind of makes sense that we don't have those balusters anymore. I would imagine that was some serious upkeep needed. So the canvas makes a lot of sense now. So there was very little else happening on the beach. It was pretty desolate. In the background, you can see the newly built home of one of our founders, William Coolidge. There's no direct relation to T.J. Coolidge, but that was the former site of that Crescent Beach house that I mentioned. And once again, that is where summer wind is now. Here's a quick look at the front entrance as it was. Some of the notes stated in the bylaws: the pool opened at 9 and closed at 7. Quote, books, pamphlets, or newspapers should not be removed from the reading room, unquote. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Quote, dogs will not be allowed inside the clubhouse, but may be brought onto the grounds and piazzas if on a leash. I think we ought to bring that rule back. What do you say, folks? Yeah. Maybe we could put a size curfew on that. So they had something called a bath department, and if a member is not using the bathhouse regularly, they may allow one of his family to make use of the same without charge, unquote. Not too sure what that means. There was a 25-cent charge for extra service if a guest used your bathhouse. We call them lockers today. I think we'll go back to bathhouse. This sounds better. Let's see. The guest on their own could use it or could use it for 50 cents. If there was an attendant for the bathhouses who would take care of your valuables and towels and take care of your one suit. Another quick shot. So, just 4 weeks into the season, due to the overwhelming interest in the use of the club by members and the guests, the board of directors sent out this special notice regarding the, quote, necessity of a strict enforcement of the rules governing the introduction of guests. As it says there, they were going to put a doorman at the entrance, and you had to show your card to him until he became familiar with the members. The club originally only sold 200 memberships, and that's the same number that we have today. And introducing guests is an issue today as well. That's a joke, people. It's a joke. Speaking of guests, a lady by the name of Marjorie Durant Campbell, here she is with her 2 kids are in front. I'm not too sure who the kids are on her side, but Mrs. Campbell was a guest in 1915, and her father was the gentleman by the name of William C. Durant, founded General Motors in 1908. So this was the spot that her family came. Here's a quick look from of the members from the 1913 season. You can see some Coolidges there. Several, or at least a few of these are. You can see them coming from Philadelphia and Cleveland and Milwaukee, and that's just a few of them. Here's the first balance sheet. That was the rundown cigar account. That's quite interesting. Swimming tickets, entertainment account. I'm not too sure what towards the top there. Expense account. I'm not exactly sure what our associates trustees were doing. But that's a quick look. Here's another look from Shore Road. Things are coming along. Let's see. William H. Coolidge, as I said, is one of the original board founders, and just a little background on it. As you see there, that's Blinman Farm. Once again, where Summerhill is presently. So William was a graduate of Harvard and Harvard Law. He ran the law department at the Boston and Maine Railroad. He ended up starting his own firm, and he was involved in the formation of the shoe. United States Shoe in Beverly. And a lot of these folks, a lot of people back then, they belonged to all the clubs. You name it, and they belonged to it. So he was a member of Essex. He was a member of the Country Club. He was in the Algonquin Club, the Harvard Club. I'm not too sure if he was over myopia, but I wouldn't doubt it. And he was a very big landowner. He purchased 95 acres on both sides of Summer Street. And this house that you're looking at had 30 rooms, has a loggia, 6 master chambers with private baths and a working chimney in each. And they also had 7 maid chambers, and to boot a 2,000 pipe organ. But his claim to fame, it's an interesting fact, because among having great success in the legal field, he liked to do some venture capital work back then. So he got together with 3 young grads from MIT about how to put color into movies back then, and that was 1912. So he funded them a lot of money, and their company became known as Technicolor. And back then, over the course of several years, he gave them $400,000, which is now worth about $9 million. But he pulled out because it was a very, very slow process for these folks to get it right. And it's been said that it wasn't until Gone with the Wind that they really got it right with color. And that was 23 years later. So as I say in the book, we do have a lot to thank, because, Mr. Coolidge here made color movies that we enjoy today possible with some deep pockets. It's too bad that, he wasn't able to pay off on it. But I don't think any of the original finances to the project were. Here's a quick look inside Linden Farm. That's the front foyer that you see there. That's how houses were built. That was a beast of a house. I think it had iron beams in it before they took it down. But it was quite a place. Charles Willis Jones, one of our trustees. This house is still there. If you're at the Magnolia Library, there's a little dirt road across the street. If you take that down, you'll see this house. It was known as Highfield. He lived on Beacon Street in a townhouse next to his son's townhouse. He was also a member. He was the president of a bank called New England National Bank. And he was one of the originators of the Magnolia Library at the same time. A few of the other board of directors, Lucius Tuttle was the president of Boston and Maine. The gentleman on the right, George Willett, hailed from Norwood, and he was the club's first president. He had a tannery, and he made an awful lot of money. He built a house on Coolidge Point, and he said in his will, quote, leave $1 million to my family and the rest for public good. Public good got a lot of money out of Mr. Willett, so he was a swell guy. Costello Converse, he ran the Boston Rubber Company in Malden, which had a 10-acre complex and 3,000 workers, but he is not the Converse of Converse that we know it today, oddly enough. He happens to own the house. He built the house out in the point on Shore Road. If you take Shore Road and you make the bend, there's a big house with a red roof, stucco house, and he didn't have any kids. It was just he and the Mrs. Ida, and they owned that beautiful house. But once again, I guess he had the means to do it. So here's a quick look at a property map, and it's the first map that shows the club on it. And if we zoom in here a little bit, you can see the Magnolia Beach Associates there. Once again, it's back to Gray's Beach, and now it's Easterly Kettle Cove or Magnolia Harbor. What you see there, Williams Coolidge House, the house that we were just looking at, there it is right there. Some of the folks that were, let's see, Mr. Willett, I believe, is right there.
Where was this train station at?
Train station, here it is. So, here's Raymond Street, right there, fork of Raymond. And we go down Summer, you go by the little pond, Lily Pond, University Ave on your right. But if you continue, it would be way up there. see if the focus is off on this. Looked a lot clearer at home. Huh. I guess that's as good as it gets. Anyway. Black Beach, TJ's Coolidge Point. And you can see there, as you know, that's the town line. For the longest time, this whole region, even going as far as White Beach, was considered Magnolia. And as we know, it's always been Manchester by the Sea.
Dave, how about a big finish?
A big finish. Let's move on to a big finish. Yeah, I was afraid of that. Good stuff. Some photographs. Here's a great shot. Look at the woodwork and French doors. I love that shot. This is from about 1930. What time is it anyway, John?
Quarter after.
Oh, damn.
Is the pool still there?
The pool is still there. It's turned freshwater, I think, back in the early 80s. We've seen a lot of storms over the years. This gentleman was one of our first lifeguards. He ended up becoming the coach at the U.S. Olympic team, swim team. So he went for the B&T, the Olympics, top of the world in swimming. This lady right here is Eleanor Zinzer Green. I was able to track her down. It was great to chat with her. She's 90 years old now. Her husband's 99. And she had an amazing memory. She spent her first 16 years here in Magnolia. Her great-grandfather had been coming from Philadelphia from the 1890s. And she was born in 1924, so she spent the first 16 or so years in Magnolia. They built a small house and enjoyed the club. We still keep in touch, and we wrote a chapter together in the book, which I think is great because she offered some wonderful photographs like this. That's Ellen right there. So we were known as the darling of the social pages. Lots going on. The swimming pool, by the way, is the center of social life in Magnolia. Everybody goes there between 11 and 1 for the bath. They line the courts during the forenoon and again in the afternoon to watch the matches. These outdoor sports vie with the bridge and tea parties inside on the spacious verandas for the popularity among the older ones. Here's a clam bake. They loved clam bakes. They loved weenie and corn roasts. Let's see. All right. Some of these help that we had. So getting close to the end. Very close. As you can see over the years, you can see from looking at these, the original handbook is right here, still known as Magnolia, and then became the Beach Club in 1929. And this was also back, this was probably from the early 20s. Became the Bath and Tennis early in the 50s. And currently still there, Bath and Tennis. But officially, as I pointed out in the book, it is an ampersand. It is not an and. That is the legal. So, to wrap it up, one last thought. This article that I'm going to read, this brief passage, it kind of sums up quite well, and it shows how even after 100 years, the essence of what the club is all about has not wavered. And it says this: although the North Shore offers many forms of social activity to the young people and opportunities for their enjoyment are unlimited, there is certainly no place about which clusters such attractive and so diverse forms of entertainment as those which the North Shore swimming pool has to offer. It goes on to say, here is a place where parents may send their children and feel that they are perfectly safe. Here it is that the young people may congregate to their advantage both physically and socially. In fact, this is indeed a rendezvous from where the 6-year-old child to the 60-year-old gentleman a good time awaits all. There is no such thing as tiring of the spot, for each successive day spent at the pool serves only to create for renewing the visit. And the closing of the season find members even more enthusiastic than at the conclusion of the first day. And that was from 1922. That could have been written yesterday. I think anybody that's a present member would speak of it in the same way. And that it is, folks. That is it.
I don't think there's any question of here's a gentleman who really loves his subject matter. Wonderful job, Dave.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everybody. We do have some books for sale if you're interested. They're right over there at the door. Feel free to come by. I think they're only $25. That's a special discount.
And you can probably get him autographed by the office.
You don't want to do
One little bit of housekeeping. It's a record crowd tonight, which means we have a record number of chairs that have to be folded up and put back. So if you all help with that, that would be appreciated. Thanks again.
Thanks, everybody.